On the morning of the 17th of October 2022, Marumo Eric Pena kissed his wife goodbye and left his home in Roodepoort to do what thousands of South African parents do every day, dropping off his children at school. It was a routine Monday morning, the kind that starts with packed lunches and last-minute homework checks. But for Marumo, it would be the last morning of his life. His crime? Telling the truth about corruption in one of the country's most powerful government departments. This is the story of Marumo Eric Pena. Let's get into it. Marumo Eric Pena was a 57-year-old businessman married to his lovely wife, Johanna Pena. The two had been married for many years and had recently celebrated a wedding anniversary. Marumo and Johanna had built a life together, raising their children in Roodepoort on Gauteng's West Rand. Johanna owned and managed Foresight IT Business Solutions, an IT company that specialized in providing technology solutions to government departments through tenders. Marumo worked closely with his wife in the business, and together they built a reputation for professionalism and integrity in an industry where government contracts could be lucrative but also treacherous. In August 2020, Foresight IT Business Solutions won what seemed like a significant opportunity. They were awarded a contract directly by the Department of Home Affairs worth close to 120 million rands. Some reports have even indicated that the figure was as high as 200 million rands. This was not the first tender that Foresight had won through Home Affairs. The first was from 2014 until 2017, and a second tender from 2017 to 2020 before this last tender, which was the third. Their tender was for the supply and delivery of firewall hardware, software licenses, certificate authority, and supporting and maintenance of critical security systems for one of South Africa's most important government departments, the Home Affairs Department. After Foresight was awarded the tender in August 2020, it was abruptly cancelled in early 2021 without a valid reason. They were told that the tender would be re-advertised and they would bid like everyone else if they wanted the tender again. According to Johanna, when a tender is above 50 million rands, the government requires, perhaps this is for the Department of Home Affairs or it's the whole tender system, I'm not sure, but she indicated that they require that the main contractor must have a subcontractor, which they award 30% of the contract to in order to assist with the fulfillment of the tender, as well as with the intention, this is what the government envisaged, that the main contractor would also facilitate training for the smaller company. But even outside of the mandatory subcontracting stipulations in these tenders, working with or fully using subcontractors to do work is common practice in the tender world, even without it being a requirement. Many large contracts usually involve partnerships and subcontracting to handle different aspects of the work. During the time that Johanna's company was getting ready to bid for the second time after the cancellation of that tender, they were approached by another company, Aimright Trading, a 100% Black-owned, female-owned company which expressed an interest in working with them in the capacity of a subcontractor. According to Johanna, the wife of Marumo and company director, they figured that because previously when the tender was cancelled, they were working with a different subcontractor, which was a company owned by a man. Maybe this time, if they made a bid indicating that the subcontractor that they would award 30% of the contract to was female-owned, perhaps this would give them an edge. And true to what the couple believed was their strategy, the tender once again was awarded to them after they said they would involve Aimrite. But what should have been a business success story for the Peñas was about to become a nightmare that would destroy their family forever. So, because the tender was worth 120 million rands, and Aimrite was awarded 30% of the tender by Foresight IT Business Solutions, this meant they were awarded 36 million rands for their subcontracting role in the fulfillment of the Home Affairs tender. So as the Peñas began working with Aimrite Trading and monitoring their performance, they noticed something deeply troubling. There were irregularities, there were things that just did not add up, and connections that raised red flags. This included the fact that the owner of that company, a woman named Dorcas Tebeku, never agreed to meet with the Peñas in person or speak to them on the phone. Initially, when they were approached by someone, when they were trying to bid for that tender after it was cancelled, the person that approached them was a technician in the company in Aimrite and was also the brother of this Dorcas Tebeku. But Dorcas would only allegedly reply to emails but never agree to meet. Even when the Peñas had complaints and believed that her company was not fulfilling some of the agreement, she never agreed to meet with them. In addition, the work that was subcontracted to the company was being fulfilled using Home Affairs workers and state resources rather than Aimrite. This included the fact that Home Affairs was hiring cars. So Aimrite was subcontracted to fulfill the tender in 3 different provinces. And they needed to hire cars and lodge in different places in the 3 different provinces when they were there to install these various firewalls and other things at different Home Affairs branches. This was all being paid for by Home Affairs. Home Affairs workers were carrying out the mandate, and Aimrite was pocketing all of the profit without doing any of the work. As the couple dug deeper, they discovered something that would put their lives in danger. Aimrite Trading was allegedly linked to Zakhele Khuzwayo, a senior official in the Department of Home Affairs, who held the position of Director of Information Systems and Security Systems. Even more damning was that not only was Zakhele Khuzwayo a senior official at Home Affairs, but he was also a member of the Bid Evaluation Committee, the very committee responsible for evaluating and awarding the tender. This was a clear conflict of interest, potentially pointing to a rigged tender process worth millions of rands. Someone on the inside had allegedly benefited from a contract they had helped to award. The Peñas had a choice to make. They could look the other way, complete the contract, take the money, and pretend that they had seen nothing. Or they could do the right thing, and they chose integrity. They canceled the subcontract with Aimrite Trading and reported the alleged irregularities to the Department of Home Affairs. But doing the right thing in South Africa often comes with a terrible price. Shortly after their whistleblowing, the threats began. The Peñas received several phone calls, voice notes, SMSs, all with the same chilling message: keep quiet or die. In August 2022, while Marumo and Johanna were in Greece celebrating their wedding anniversary, they received a call that made their blood run cold. A man who identified himself as Xolani warned them that a hit has been taken out on both of them, and they needed to keep their mouths shut. Further, he wanted them to agree to a meeting with him to discuss some of these things. When they returned to South Africa, the threats only escalated. Strangers appeared at their home, more phone calls and messages with threats. Terrified but determined, the Peñas did what citizens are supposed to do. In September 2022, 3 weeks before Marumo's murder, they went to Honeydew Police Station and opened a case of conspiracy to commit murder. They provided evidence, the recorded phone calls, the text messages, as well as details of the men that had been in their home when they were not there, using their surveillance video footage. They laid it all out to police, desperately seeking protection. The Hawks, using information provided by the Peñas, traced down the number that had been calling and threatening the couple to a house in Kyalami and used the surveillance video from the couple's home as well as street surveillance videos to determine the car that the individuals who came to their house had been driving. The police also found that the car that had been used by the perpetrators who came to the house was also connected to the property in Kyalami that the cell phone had been traced to. At this point, Johanna says they relaxed, believing that the police knew who was involved and were going to solve the case. However, nothing was done. The case gathered dust while the threats continued. And another very important part of the story, it's not clear from all the news sources that I've read as well as listening to various interviews with Johanna, it's not clear when she testified against the Home Affairs officials, because after the irregularities were identified by the couple and reported to Home Affairs had an internal investigation, and Johanna says that she testified against Aimright and the two Home Affairs officials, including Zakhele Kuzwayo and another unnamed official. At the end of the internal investigations, Kuzwayo was fired from the Department of Home Affairs as well as the other official. But what is not clear is, were the threats before the internal investigation, or did those come even after Zakhele Kuzwayo was fired from his role at Home Affairs? However, on the morning of the 17th of October 2022, 3 weeks after the couple had opened a case at Honeydew Police Station, the people who had promised to kill Marumo Peña made good on their threat. Just after 7:30 a.m., as he made his way home along Hendrik Potgieter's road, after the school run, were lying in wait. They had been stalking him, watching his movements and learning his patterns. When his white Land Rover stopped at a traffic light near his home, just 3 minutes away from his home, they struck. 10 shots from a 9mm pistol shattered the morning calm. Marumo tried to escape. His vehicle lurched forward before coming to a stop on the side of the road. When police arrived, they found him slumped in the driver's seat, riddled with bullets. Another South African whistleblower, silenced forever. He was 57 years old, murdered for refusing to be complacent in corruption. If you are intrigued by my storytelling, please like this video. That is a way of telling YouTube that it is a good video to share with more people. That helps the channel grow. In addition, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. The murder investigation began immediately, but from start, it seemed to move at a glacial pace. Police cordoned off the scene where Marumo's bullet-riddled vehicle had come to rest, collected evidence, took statements, and opened murder dockets. But as days turned to weeks turned to months, Johanna began to realize a devastating truth. There would be no swift justice for her husband. Despite the fact that the Peñas had already filed a conspiracy to commit murder case just 3 weeks before his assassination, complete with evidence of threats, that case also went nowhere. Johanna was left with a horrifying question: had someone deliberately ignored their pleas for help? Realizing that catching the killers was taking time and now she and the children were living in fear, Johanna contracted a private investigation company, IRS Forensic Investigations, and the principal investigator of that company, Chet Thomas, was brought in to assist. What he discovered suggested something far larger than the tender irregularities, but rather that what Marumo uncovered when he found out the irregularities, when he and his wife found the irregularities with the awarding of that tender, what they didn't know was that the same syndicate was involved in many other irregularities at Home Affairs relating to an organized crime syndicate operating within the department. This organized syndicate allegedly linked to the unlawful issuing of identity and passport documents to persons who were not eligible for these documents. So the web of criminality was much, much larger than that single tender. This was, of course, explosive. If true, it meant that criminal syndicates had infiltrated the Department of Home Affairs itself, using their positions to fraudulently issue IDs and passports, documents that could facilitate everything from illegal immigration to money laundering and even terrorism. And these syndicates were willing to kill to protect their lucrative operations. The case attracted high-level political attention. The deputy president, Paul Mashatile, engaged with the Peña family, meeting with them with the then deputy minister of police, Hassel Matali, and the head of the Hawks at the time, General Godfrey Lebeya. There were promises, assurances, and expressions of concern, but months passed and still no arrests were made. In May 2024, more than a year and a half after the murder, police announced what they called a potential breakthrough, identifying a 28-year-old man named Minenhle Sibusiso Mthembu as a person of interest. And the Hawks even urged him through the media to come forward, stating that he had what they believed to be important information that could shed light on the case. The private investigator working with the family, Mr. Chet Thomas, even suggested to the media that this Mthembu has links right through to an assassin-for-hire syndicate that is based in the east coast of KwaZulu-Natal, a province that, as you know, is notorious for having inkabi that can be hired to assassinate just about anyone, anywhere in the country. But even with this breakthrough, nothing ever came from it. Mthembu never came forward and no arrests were made. And to this day, there has not been any arrests, despite the fact that Marumo Eric Peña was gunned down in broad daylight. Justice for him remains elusive. Also, according to Chet Thomas, the police have been able to identify the two hitmen. One of them was killed in a shootout with police in Sandton, in Johannesburg, while the other one is likely, this is according to Chet Thomas, likely in hiding in rural KwaZulu-Natal. The people who hired the hit, though, and those that continue to send threats to the family, whether it is the same person or different people, have never been arrested or charged in the murder of Marumo. The conspiracy to commit murder case filed in September 2022, just before Marumo was murdered, also appears to have gone nowhere. The case that could have saved Marumo's life if acted upon now sits in police archives, a damning testament to systemic failure. As for the corruption case at the Department of Home Affairs, as stated, 2 officials were fired from their positions after lengthy internal disciplinary proceedings. But the status of any criminal proceedings in the corruption remains unclear. Johanna Peña even stated publicly that the people who killed her husband are still benefiting from tenders, and some are still even working at the Department of Home Affairs. Johanna Peña lives in fear. In interviews, she has described her life since losing her husband as like being a prisoner. She and her children live in fear and in hiding and continue to receive threats, even in 2025. Some of them are simply saying hi to her, and others are telling her to say hi to the children and that she is going to be next. Johanna has received recognition for her courage, though. In 2023, she was honored by Blueprint for Free Speech at their Whistleblowing Awards. But awards don't bring back her husband, and they won't provide protection she desperately needs.
Yeah, 3 years down the line, no answers. And you still relive the experience. You're still getting the threats. Each and every month I'm getting an SMS stating that I must watch my back, I'm next. Saying I must say hi to my kids. He's coming after my kids. Yeah, it's been a nightmare.
I can't imagine. And what do you have in terms of protection? I know that your faith is quite unwavering and solid, but what do you have just to protect you?
Nothing. There's nothing from the SAPS. It's just my faith. It's just me and my God.
Marumo Peña's case is also part of a disturbing pattern. In South Africa, he joins a long list of whistleblowers that have paid the ultimate price for exposing corruption. The message in South Africa is clear. Telling the truth about corruption can get you killed, and that the chances of anyone being held responsible are slim. That is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section, which always generates such an interesting debate and perspectives about the state of crime in our country. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.